All right, let's talk about one of the most exciting tech stories happening right now anywhere on the planet. I'm talking about India's ambitious and frankly super fast journey into the world of robotics.
And look, this is way bigger than just building some cool new gadgets. For India, getting robotics right is what you'd call a once-in-a-generation mission. Seriously, we're talking about a strategic push to transform manufacturing, solve some really big societal problems, and, lock in its spot as a global tech powerhouse.
Okay, so before we get into the whole revolution part, let's just back up for a second and make sure we're all on the same page. What even is a robot, really? Well, when you strip it all down, it's actually a pretty simple three-step dance. Think about it. Every single robot, doesn't matter if it's your Roomba bumping into a chair or a super advanced surgical arm, they all work on this same basic loop. First, it senses its surroundings, maybe with a camera, maybe with another kind of sensor. Then its brain, the computer, processes all that info and decides what to do. And finally, it acts. It moves, it grabs, it does something. Sense, compute, act. That's it. That's the secret sauce.
All right, now for the main event. Because when it comes to robotics, India isn't just, testing the waters. No, they've cannonballed right into the deep end. And the speed and scale of how they're adopting this tech, honestly, it's kind of staggering.
Just look at this number. By 2021, India had over 33,000 industrial robots up and running. Now, to give you some context on that, that number more than doubled in just 5 years. That's not just growth, people. That's an absolute explosion.
And that explosion? Well, it put India squarely on the global map. By 2022, the country was ranked 10th in the entire world for new robot installations in a single year. That's a huge deal and a super clear sign of just how serious they are about this.
So, okay, the numbers are impressive, for sure. But the real question is, where are all these robots actually going? What are they doing? Let's take a look at how they're shaking things up in some of India's most important industries.
First up, the classic, manufacturing. I mean, this is the traditional home turf for robots, right? They've been boosting efficiency and cutting costs on factory floors for decades. But now, with India's whole Make in India push, it's like pouring gasoline on an already roaring fire.
But here's the cool part. We're not just talking about those giant, scary-looking robot arms locked away in cages anymore. The real game changer is the rise of cobots, collaborative robots. Take a company like Bajaj Auto. They've got these cobots mounted on the ceiling, and they work literally side by side with human workers. They handle the awkward, repetitive stuff that can cause injuries and fatigue. It's making the whole factory safer and more efficient for everybody. And this isn't just a one-off thing. It's happening all across the manufacturing world. We're seeing it in logistics, with robots zipping around huge warehouses. We're seeing it in production, optimizing these incredibly complex assembly lines. And of course, that on-the-ground teamwork we just talked about. Robots are just fundamentally rewriting the rules of how stuff gets made.
Okay, let's switch gears to another area where the impact is, if anything, even more profound: healthcare. I mean, here we're not just talking about efficiency. We're talking about technology that can literally save lives and completely change how patients are cared for.
Get this, way back in 2019, India had already performed over 12,800 surgeries with robotic assistance. And that was years ago. The growth since then has just been through the roof. This isn't some fringe experimental tech anymore. It's fast becoming a central pillar of modern medicine in India.
And the uses are just so varied. You've got these amazing surgical robots, like the homegrown SSI Mantra system, that allow for incredible precision. But it's also robots helping out with physical therapy, robots that disinfect entire hospital rooms, and even robots that power telemedicine, bridging the gap between doctors and patients who live far away. And for our last example, let's go somewhere you might not expect, a sector that is, without a doubt, the backbone of the entire Indian economy: farming. Yeah, agriculture. Probably not the first thing that pops into your head when you think robots, right? But trust me, the stuff happening here is absolutely revolutionary.
You've got everything from drones flying overhead keeping an eye on crop health to these super smart AI-powered machines, like the ones from a startup called Robotics that can spray a tiny bit of fertilizer exactly where it needs to go and nowhere else. This tech is helping solve huge problems like labor shortages and the massive need to farm more sustainably. It's all about doing more with less.
Okay, so this all sounds amazing, right? A total home run. But you knew there was a but coming.
The road to becoming a world leader in robotics is never that simple. India is up against some really big, deep-rooted challenges that it absolutely has to figure out.
And these aren't small hurdles. For one, there's a huge reliance on importing parts from other countries, and that makes everything more expensive. Then there's the skills gap. You need a lot of highly trained people to design, build, and fix these things, and right now, there aren't enough. And then you have the big, thorny ethical questions about what this all means for jobs, for privacy. All that stuff has to be sorted out.
So that brings us to the million-dollar question, doesn't it? The potential is obviously there. It's huge, but potential doesn't pay the bills. How do you actually overcome these massive hurdles? How do you turn all this incredible ambition into a reality?
Well, India's answer is a big, comprehensive, national strategy. They've essentially formalized all this ambition into something called the National Robotics Mission. And this is it, the official playbook, the Draft National Strategy on Robotics. This document literally lays out the step-by-step plan to take on all those challenges we just talked about and, crucially, to build a robotics industry that can stand on its own 2 feet. And the vision couldn't be clearer or more ambitious. The goal is to make India a global leader in robotics, specifically for manufacturing, healthcare, and agriculture, all by 2030. So how are they planning to pull this off? Well, the strategy is smart. It focuses on strengthening every single link in what you could call the innovation chain. So it's not just about, throwing money at research. It's also about creating places to test out new ideas, helping businesses actually turn those ideas into real products, and then pushing to get those products out there and used by everyone. It's the whole shebang, from start to finish.
Which brings us right back to the final and most important question. The plan is there, the ambition is off the charts, and that early momentum is undeniable. But what happens next? Well, it really all boils down to one single thing.
Look, India has the vision, it has the plan, all the pieces are on the chessboard, but the big question mark remains execution. Can the country actually pull off this grand strategy? Can it break free from its reliance on foreign parts, train a whole new generation of engineers, and build an ecosystem that's strong enough to not just play in the big leagues, but to actually lead the global robotics revolution by 2030? The next few years are going to be absolutely fascinating to watch.